Welcome. Before we dive in, I want to know where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments because this story is about trust, betrayal, and reclaiming your life, and it might resonate more than you think. My name is Miles Hartley, and I want to share the story of the day everything I believed about my life shattered and how I turned it into clarity, control, and, ultimately, peace. I discovered someone worth my time, but not in the way anyone expects. I'm 44, a commercial architect based in Savannah, Georgia, and I was sitting in my home office staring at an email from my wife of 12 years, Kendra, supposedly, at a yoga retreat in Arizona, sent a note at 11:22 p.m. her time. It was brief, sterile, almost cold. She had moved my inheritance into her personal account. No apology, no hesitation, no acknowledgement of what she had just done. Attached was a blurry photograph showing her and a man with a beard standing on a balcony. The sunset painted the sky orange and pink, the wine glasses in their hands catching the last light. Her smile was not the one I had loved, not the one I had remembered. It was confident, untethered, and unfamiliar. I closed the laptop, walked to the kitchen, and poured a glass of water, my hands trembling slightly though I didn't want them to. I stared out at the backyard we had painstakingly redesigned 3 summers ago. The stone path I had laid, the hydrangeas she had planted along the edges, it was all carefully curated for a home she apparently had no intention of returning to. The inheritance, $587,000 from my Aunt Elaine, wasn't simply cash. It represented her love, her sacrifice, and her unwavering faith in me. She had taken me in at 14 after losing my parents, worked double shifts to send me through college, and left me everything with a single note that read, "Build something that lasts." I looked at my phone, no missed calls, no messages asking if I had seen the email, just silence, like she had already stepped into her new life without a second thought for what she had left behind. The signs had been there for months, small but insistent. Her yoga retreats had become longer, first 2 days, then 4, then week-long excursions. Her phone always lay face down on tables, her passwords changed, conversations abruptly shortened. 3 months earlier, she had begun asking oddly specific questions about the inheritance, what accounts held the funds, whether we should diversify, whether any transfers might trigger fees. I nodded and said I'd think about it. I reopened the laptop, read the email again, noticing there was no greeting, no Miles, nothing except the declaration and the theft. I typed 6 words in response. Thanks for letting me know. Then I closed the laptop, finished my water, and went to bed. Tomorrow would be long, but for the first time in years, I slept in the king-sized bed without anxiety. I slept knowing she wasn't coming home. Kendra had no idea I had suspected something was wrong for months. The inheritance had never been where she thought it was, and her attempt to take it had inadvertently handed me clarity, foresight, and control. 15 years ago, I had met Kendra at a conference in Charlotte. She was launching her wellness brand and seeking someone to design her first physical space. I was 5 years into my career, hungry for projects beyond office buildings and parking structures. 3 years later, we were married. We built a life in Savannah, bought the Craftsman on Victory Drive with the wraparound porch she had always wanted. No kids, her choice. She often said the business was her child. I understood and respected that. For 8 years, it worked. I designed buildings, she built her wellness empire. We traveled, hosted dinner parties, and looked perfect both on paper and in public. Then my Aunt Elaine fell ill, cancer, aggressive and merciless. I took 6 months of partial leave to care for her in Atlanta. Kendra visited only twice, explaining that hospitals made her anxious. I didn't push. When Elaine passed, she left everything to me. The money was more than I expected, and suddenly Kendra's interest in finances became intense, her questions sharp and unusually persistent. We could expand the business, she suggested one night over dinner, meaning her brand. I told her I needed to consider what my aunt would have wanted. That small crack widened. Kendra started traveling more for research and supplier meetings. Her calls were shorter, her tone more clipped, and voices in the background disappeared whenever I asked who she was with. Our neighbor Frank casually mentioned seeing someone drop her off weeks earlier. I filed it away, choosing patience over suspicion. Then came the password changes. Banking apps suddenly locked when they never had before. Conversations about finances ended abruptly when I asked for specifics. One night, I heard her in the backyard, talking in a low voice, laughing in ways she never laughed with me. "Just Patricia from the studio," she said when I confronted her briefly. I didn't correct her, only observed as she poured another glass of wine and changed the subject. Our foundation was cracking, and only one of us acknowledged it. 2 weeks before what would be her final retreat, my financial advisor called. Someone had been trying to access my trust accounts, using my personal information but failing the security protocols. I already knew which accounts. I thanked him, hung up, and sat at my desk long into the night. That night, Kendra suggested consolidating our accounts. "It's silly to have so many separate logins," she said, avoiding eye contact. "We should simplify." "Probably right," I said. The next day, I drove to Atlanta to meet Rita Wallace, my aunt's longtime attorney, now mine. I explained my concerns clearly, calmly. "The money is protected regardless of what happens in your marriage," she said. "Attempted access would be considered financial fraud with clear legal consequences." We documented everything and set up monitoring for any attempts to move or change the trust funds. When I returned home, Kendra was packing for her retreat. She kissed me lightly and left, distant. I didn't snoop through emails or call friends. I opened our shared cloud storage and found what I needed in the home renovation folder. Screenshots, statements, notes, even a whiteboard photo detailing the inheritance minus transfer fees. She had been planning this for months. Walking through the house, the calm settled over me. Not shock, not anger, but clarity. Our marriage had become a transaction she was terminating for something more profitable. I slept in the guest room that night and began taking methodical steps the next morning. By the time her email arrived, 5 days later, I had already set everything in motion. I forwarded documentation to attorneys and began building the evidence I would need. By the time Kendra's email hit my inbox, I had already begun constructing a careful plan. No anger, no desperation, just precise steps. I contacted Jerry, my firm's financial advisor, forwarding Kendra's message with a simple note. Documentation requested. Both Jerry and Rita confirmed receipt, needing no explanation beyond what was already laid out. Then I reached out to Thomas Webb, a divorce attorney Rita had recommended months prior, during a casual conversation about hypotheticals. His office scheduled a meeting for that same afternoon. By noon, Kendra had texted, "Did you get my email?" I responded neutrally, "Yes." No emotion, no questioning. Minutes later, she replied, "That's all you have to say." I ignored it. I drove to Thomas's office, where Rita joined via video call. "The attempted transfer creates a clear paper trail," Thomas explained, reviewing the documents Rita had sent. "The funds were inherited, never commingled with marital assets, properly maintained in a trust structure, and she has now openly admitted to attempting unauthorized access." I nodded. "What's next?" I asked. "File for divorce immediately." Citing financial misconduct. Georgia isn't a no-fault state when fraud is involved. I signed the paperwork before leaving his office, the weight of the betrayal settling in my chest like a cold stone. At 4:30 p.m., my phone rang. Kendra's name flashed across the screen. I let it go to voicemail. "You're being childish," she said when I returned the call. No greeting. "No, how are you?" I stayed calm. "This doesn't have to be difficult," she said. I agreed, then changed the subject. "Where are you staying?" She paused, caught off guard. "What does that matter?" I replied, just curious where home is now. Kendra faltered, trying to regain control of the conversation. "Miles, focus. We need to discuss financial arrangements. My lawyer is drawing up the settlement papers." "It's better to keep this clean." I asked, "Who's your lawyer?" "David Lawrence. He's reviewing everything," she said. I noted it, keeping my voice neutral. "Thank you, that's helpful." Another pause. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Nothing yet, just getting used to the idea," I said. I could hear her exhale, mistaking my calm for resignation. "It's for the best," she said softly. "We've been moving in different directions for years. This is cleaner than dragging it out." "You're right," I said. "Cleaner is better." After hanging up, I called Thomas back, providing David Lawrence's information. I sent a single text to Kendra, taking some time to process. "We'll reach out when I'm ready to discuss details." Her response was immediate. don't wait too long. Papers will be ready by Friday. Friday, 3 days away. Perfect timing. At 6 p.m., Rita called. The trust company had recorded 3 separate attempts that day to initiate transfers from the accounts. All blocked, all properly documented. The monitoring system captured every IP address, every login attempt, every timestamp. The access location matched her email origin, Scottsdale, Arizona, not Sedona. There's more, Rita added. The system flagged suspicious activity from last month. Someone had exported account details and transfer protocols while logged in from our home network. Timestamps, device identifiers all documented. I thanked her, hung up, and walked through the now silent house. The home, once a place of comfort, felt like evidence. I opened a bottle of 20-year-old scotch we had been saving for our 15th anniversary, poured 2 fingers into a glass, and allowed myself a moment of reflection. Kendra thought she had set a trap, but she had walked straight into one herself. The next morning, David Lawrence called. His tone was cautiously professional. Mr. Hartley, I'm representing your wife. She claims you are unable to agree to a straightforward settlement. Is that what she said? I asked, a slight hesitation. She mentioned you understood the situation. Which situation? Specifically, I pressed. The division of assets, including recent inheritance funds, he said carefully. Has she provided documentation of these funds? Recent statements from approximately 3 months ago, he replied. I made a mental note. And the transfer confirmations. Those are forthcoming from the bank. I kept my voice even. Has she mentioned the structure of the inheritance? The irrevocable trust established by my late aunt. Silence. I suggest you verify the information before proceeding, I said. After the call, I drove to Brightstone Bank, where Kendra and I held our personal accounts. The manager, Harold, greeted me warmly but turned serious as I explained my request, a review of all joint account activity over the past 6 months. As he scrolled, his expression darkened. Significant withdrawals, he said. How significant? I asked. Small at first, 2,000, 3,500 but escalating. The latest, 47,000 2 weeks ago. The receiving account. Northern Lakes Credit Union, external, unfamiliar. He printed the transaction history. While waiting, I received a text from Thomas requesting an urgent meeting. The tone was sharper than usual. Returning to his office, the picture became clearer. The Northern Lakes account had been opened 8 months prior, Kendra's name only, linked to a Scottsdale address. Total withdrawals from our joint accounts, $178,200. She's been building a new life for a while, Thomas observed. While still accessing mine, I added. We reviewed the records when Thomas's assistant announced David Lawrence was on the line. I've received the trust documentation, Lawrence said, tension audible. My client may have misrepresented aspects of the financial situation, including her ability to access or transfer those funds, Thomas said. That appears to be the case, Lawrence admitted. It would be beneficial to discuss a revised approach. My client has filed for divorce, citing financial misconduct, Thomas replied. The documentation spoke for itself. Thomas looked at me. He'll drop her as a client by day's end. No legitimate attorney wants to be associated with this. What about the money she did take from joint accounts? I asked. Include it in the filing. Document everything. Let her explain to a judge why she opened a hidden residence and systematically drained marital assets. I felt hollow. The betrayal was deeper than imagined, calculated, planned over months while she slept beside me, ate across from me, made life plans with me. There's one more thing, I said. I need to know who he is. For confrontation or divorce, Thomas asked. No, just to understand what I missed while building what I thought was life. That evening, a courier delivered an envelope from David Lawrence formally withdrawing as Kendra's attorney, copies to her and the court, along with a note from Thomas. First domino. Minutes later, Kendra called repeatedly before sending a text. What the hell did you do? I ignored it while eating, then forwarded Rita's email. The trust investigation confirmed multiple unauthorized attempts over 3 months, all documented, with IP addresses and timestamps, and referred to the legal department for potential criminal investigation. I forwarded the report to Thomas. At 9 p.m., Kendra texted, "We need to talk now. Through your new attorney, when you have." 1. I replied, You completely overreacted, she insisted. I remained calm. That's not what the access logs show. She paused, then admitted the other man, Jason Barkley. Former investment broker, yoga teacher, according to LinkedIn, not relevant, but curious. I checked with Frank, our neighbor, about Jason. He confirmed seeing a tall man with a beard. Gray Tesla, visiting while I was away, willing to provide a notarized statement. By 11 a.m., Thomas updated me. Complication. Kendra hired Philip Barnes, aggressive divorce attorney, requesting an emergency hearing to contest financial misconduct claims. The apartment in Scottsdale, the Northern Lakes account, and Jason formed the leverage. That afternoon, Thomas delivered. I packaged to Barnes's office. Trust logs, bank records, Scottsdale lease, Frank's notarized statement, screenshots from Kendra's folder. By 5 p.m., Barnes requested an urgent meeting. He's seen enough, Thomas said. Offered a clean split. She keeps what she already took, makes no further claims. You keep everything else, including the house and full inheritance. I countered. She returns half of what she took from joint accounts and signs an NDA. I don't pursue fraud, I added. Thomas raised an eyebrow. You could get more. I want this done. No more. The morning of what would have been the hearing, Kendra and her attorney arrived to find Thomas waiting with the settlement agreement. No judge, no public spectacle. I watched through the consultation room glass as evidence photographs, statements, account logs shifted her expression from defiance to shock, then defeat. Watching her face shift from defiance to shock to defeat, I felt no triumph, no gloating satisfaction, only clarity. The illusion of our marriage, the carefully curated life, had dissolved, leaving only facts, evidence, and the uncheckable sense that I was finally free to reclaim my own path. I took a deep breath and sat back, feeling the weight of years of quiet tension lift, replaced by a calm determination. Thomas briefed me on the settlement terms one final time. Kendra would transfer $89,275, half the funds taken from our joint accounts, back within 24 hours. She would make no claims on the inheritance or any other assets. She would sign a non-disclosure agreement preventing her from discussing our marriage, the divorce, or the financial misconduct. In exchange, I would not pursue any fraud charges related to the trust. Everything else remained mine: our home, my inheritance, my career, my life. By 10 a.m., her attorney and she had signed. Thomas delivered copies to both parties, ensuring every signature, every detail was documented, notarized, and legally binding. I walked out of the consultation room, feeling lighter than I had in years. I drove home through the streets of Savannah, the moss-draped oaks lining the avenues like silent witnesses to my quiet victory. The Craftsman on Victory Drive came into view, sunlight glinting off the wraparound porch Kendra had once adored. The house now belonged entirely to me, a tangible reminder that integrity, patience, and calm could triumph over betrayal and deceit. Inside, I opened the front door and inhaled deeply. The familiar scent of polished wood, leather, and lingering traces of past dinners greeted me. Every detail of the home, from the stone path in the backyard to the hydrangeas along its edges, now stood as a monument to my efforts, my vision, my dedication. For the first time in years, it felt like a sanctuary again, not a trap. I poured myself a glass of scotch, letting the amber liquid warm my chest as I reflected on the past months. Kendra's actions had been deliberate, manipulative, and calculated. But my response, measured, deliberate, and precise, had neutralized every attempt to undermine my life. I realized something important. Betrayal, no matter how personal, could be confronted with intelligence rather than rage. Strength could manifest as patience, strategy, and careful documentation, not only as emotional reaction. That evening, I called Frank, our neighbor, to thank him for his support. He had provided statements, observations, and clarity without judgment or hesitation. Sometimes, he said, the people around you see what you can't in the moment. His words resonated. We weren't alone in our challenges. Allies often appeared quietly, waiting to be acknowledged. Over the next few days, the reversal of funds was confirmed. The trust company finalized their investigation, reporting multiple unauthorized attempts, timestamps, and IP logs. Any potential criminal investigation had been flagged, giving me the option to pursue justice further if I chose. But I didn't. There is a difference between victory and vengeance. I had chosen clarity over chaos, resolution over retribution. Kendra sent a series of texts, increasingly desperate, but I kept my responses minimal and neutral. "We need to discuss this now," I replied, "through your attorney, when you have one." She attempted manipulation, guilt, and insinuation, all met with calm silence or concise factual responses. One message stood out, the name Jason Barkley. I investigated quietly, uncovering his background: former investment broker turned yoga teacher in Scottsdale, seeking meaningful connections rather than financial gain. I learned everything I needed, not for confrontation but to fully understand the scope of Kendra's deception. Each piece of the puzzle added clarity, and the more I knew, the more detached I became from the betrayal itself. It existed, undeniable, but it no longer had power over my emotions or my decisions. By midweek, the legal process concluded. Kendra had returned half of the funds taken from our joint accounts, signed the non-disclosure, and agreed to leave all other assets untouched. Thomas filed the divorce, documenting financial misconduct, and closed the case without public spectacle or courtroom drama. I walked through our home that evening, noting details I had once overlooked: the way light hit the living room in the late afternoon, the quiet hum of air conditioning over the stone floors, the subtle scent of lavender from the hydrangeas she had planted. This house, this life, was now wholly mine. I poured another glass of scotch and raised it silently too, the memories, both the good and the deceptive. Reflection was not regret, it was learning. Betrayal teaches lessons others seldom anticipate: vigilance, patience, the power of evidence, and the value of emotional restraint. I sat at my desk the next morning, opening the plans for a new project. My focus was absolute. Years of careful work in architecture had taught me that structure, detail, and vision mattered. The same applied to life. Foundations must be strong, plans must be deliberate, and trust must be earned, never assumed. I called my closest friends, shared the news, not to gloat, but to affirm the importance of foresight and preparation. Support networks matter, even when one feels alone. Each conversation reinforced my belief that dignity, patience, and careful planning could transform chaos into opportunity. That evening, I opened the blinds in the kitchen, letting the Georgia sun pour over the countertops. The backyard, once the site of shared labor, now stood as a testament to what I had created and protected. I considered the journey, from shock and betrayal to calm and decisive action. Each step had required careful attention, control of emotion, and strategic decision-making. I realized that freedom and peace do not come from others' choices but from one's own. My inheritance, my home, my life, they were now safe, secured, and reflective of my efforts, not Kendra's whims. In the days that followed, I began documenting the experience, intending to share lessons learned. Boundaries matter. Documentation matters. Patience matters. Calm in the face of deception matters. I thought of others in similar situations, facing betrayal in silence, paralyzed by emotion. Knowledge, preparation, and methodical action are far stronger than anger or retaliation. I drafted notes, reflections, and reminders to share in a video, a narrative meant not for revenge, but for empowerment. I wanted to connect with people who might feel powerless in the face of deception or manipulation, to show them a path toward clarity and reclaiming control. Sitting at my desk, reviewing the evidence, photographs, and account logs one final time, I felt a profound sense of resolution. The process had been exhausting, emotionally draining, and mentally taxing, but the outcome was worth every step. I poured a final glass of scotch that evening, toasted silently to integrity, to foresight, and to patience. I considered the lessons Kendra's actions had unwittingly taught me, not about her, but about myself. About vigilance, preparation, strategy, and the power of calm action. I realized I had grown stronger, wiser, and more attuned to both human behavior and the necessity of protecting what is mine. And finally, as I looked out over the backyard, sunlight fading into the golden haze of early evening, I drafted a final note, not for Kendra, not for anyone who had caused pain, but for all watching, all listening, all navigating their own challenges. Life will test you. Betrayal will come in forms you cannot anticipate. But clarity, patience, and action grounded in fact rather than emotion will always give you the power to reclaim what is rightfully yours. If you take anything from this story, Let it be that no one has the right to control your life, your resources, or your peace. Protect what matters. Document, observe, act, and maintain calm. Those who betray will reveal themselves. Your strength lies in your response. To those watching this, wherever you are, remember, your life is yours, not theirs. Stand firm, protect what you've built, and never let deception dictate your path. Welcome your clarity, embrace your power, and walk forward with confidence. This is my story, my journey from betrayal to clarity, from chaos to control. Let it inspire, let it caution, and above all, let it empower. Thank you for being here. Remember to share where you're watching from. And as we close, I leave you with this: your life, your choices, your peace are worth everything. Stand guard, stand firm, and never allow anyone to compromise what you have built. The strength to reclaim your life is already within you. It only takes awareness, patience, and the courage to act.